Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Temple of Speed podcast. Man, I love to hear those cars go by. This is the Mormon Cowboy. Thank you for showing up today. Good to be here. Today in the Chopp'n It Up studios, we have a guest not from the Chop Shop League for the first time. We've got more coming up. I've got a couple planned. To give you a sneak peek, Andrew Davis, Rock NASCAR, if you know who that is, Heat 5 community stuff. But we're going to start getting some more interviews. Henry Dudley, if you know who that is. We've got a few podcasts planned and already scheduled, so we are ready to get those out of the way. But first, we get Derek Watson. Derek Watson, born in Columbus, Ohio, mainly known for running NASCAR NIS officials, C-Fixed. He did officiating for, that's where I met him, is he did officiating for the Majors 24 for the Major Series. I think it's a great race. There's a lot of stuff that happened with that. That was kind of crazy. But he did 12 hours volunteer work as I did for that. And so it's kind of where I met him. We're going to talk a lot about his life, his achievements on iRacing, and the motorsports team that he runs. So we're going to have a good conversation here tonight, guys. Now let's bring him in. Derek Watson, 41. How you doing tonight, Derek?
Wow, 41. That's a big, scary number to hear it said out loud, isn't it? Like, oh, man. Oh, yeah. Some days I feel 41. Some days I feel 24. And some days I feel, well, older than 41. Yeah, doing good. It's been a long day. I'll give a sneak peek. We're recording just out on NFL opening night. So I spent the night out watching the game. So just got home. And, a great game. Really fun. So having a good evening.
Well, I'm really glad to have you here. He got his Dr. Pepper, get his endorsements in, He's like those Coke drivers, Joey Logano makes like what, 10 grand every time he takes a sip,
I've got to get on that deal.
You got to get in on that deal. You better be hitting him up right now and say, "Hey, I'm releasing a podcast. I need to get paid $10 for every sip I get from this Dr. Pepper throughout the night." So you got to say the Dr. Pepper and just do little sips. All right, don't even drink any. Just kind of show it,
Yeah.
There you go.
I guess until I get paid, I'll have to do it like this and just kind of cover the can and.
Yeah, exactly. Just cover the can, you ever seen like those things or, did you see the Ryan Blaney with a bot at the I think it was Gator or something? He just squirted out his mask during COVID. Do you remember that?
I have seen that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. He made buku bucks on that one for sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
So no, it's really good to have you here. Let's first talk a little bit about your life and you growing up, and then we'll get into the iRacing achievements because I think it's important to go over who you are, especially because a lot of people are going to be listening to this don't know who you are, and so you'll get more texts, I bet. So because of this, the Chop Shop Racing League is a pretty decently sized league. They used to run super late models on Sundays. Then on Tuesdays they run a truck series. Wednesdays they run a road course series. Thursdays was always their day off, and Fridays they run their Cup Series. So if you're interested in racing, there's an option there. And now you're on their podcast even before you raced.
There you go.
So there you go. Check out Chop Shop Racing, guys. It's a great opportunity to come race. Hit up Michael Strickland. But let's talk a little bit about who you are. So you're born in Columbus, Ohio. You live there until you're 24. Okay. I was born in Toledo. The things that I did till I was like 6 when I moved away was Mud Hens games and Cedar Point were like the main memories. And apparently hanging snakes from trees and swinging from them.
That's
I don't
scary.
know. I'm scared of snakes now. I never really – that was the older kids. But what was there to do growing up in Columbus, Ohio?
Oh, my gosh. Both a lot and a little for multiple reasons, actually. So I guess I'll start with explaining. I was born in Columbus, as you said. I was born with a visual disability. It's genetic on my father's side. So I was born day one out of the womb with cataracts. Mm-hmm. So my first eye surgery was at 8 weeks old. And then from there, it kind of just went on to surgeries to help, maybe improve or repair the muscles, and a lot of doctor's appointments as a kid just for my eyesight. a lot of time spent at the Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, for that. Not to mention, by the way, that I had childhood asthma on top of it, so it was really just like a double whammy in that moment. So, um, to answer your first question, what was there to do in Columbus? Both a lot and a little. 'Cause, I mean, I had little vision, um, roughly as a child, about maybe 70% vision, maybe 80% vision in both eyes. I had the big. You hear the people joke about the big, like the Coke bottle glasses with the big
Mm-hmm.
strap on the back. That was me. So like when I went to school, there was always the classroom for the kids with visual impairments. Um, so, I was a big nerd as a kid. I was, listen, being a kid in school, even nowadays, is probably pretty hard. You get harassed, you get picked on, you get some really awful things said to you, that just, people think are funny that maybe aren't. I was a big nerd, and I was very much an introvert as a kid. I, grew up being a humongous video game person, whether it be my Sega Genesis, my Nintendo, my old Commodore 64, for people old enough to remember what those are, and kind of progressed through. I am not technically an only child, but my older brother is 9 years older than me. My younger brother is 7 or 8 years younger than me. So in a way, I am the only child because just that age gap is pretty huge
Yeah.
by itself, right? So I spent a lot of time playing video games, whether it be just silly RPGs or sports games or whatever. Back then, it's weird to think now because every football game is on TV somewhere. But back then,
Yeah.
not every football game aired on TV. There were a lot of Ohio State football games that were radio broadcast only. So you could typically find me by a radio during the fall listening to Ohio State radio broadcasts for football. I'm a huge Buckeye to this day. Like,
Go Buckeyes. Go Buckeyes.
Right? Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Right. It's been a long journey. There's been some up years and some down years and some time in between. But I mean, I spent a lot of time as a nerd. I was one of those nerds who kind of liked school. Then around 7th or 8th grade, I discovered a school in Ohio in Columbus called the Ohio State School for the Blind, which is a school specifically for blind and vision impaired students, which my mother put me in. And that was a whole new world because now everybody there has the same or close to the same disability as you. And it's not as negative. There's not all the harassment and all the stuff going on. And there I got to really thrive. I was part of the wrestling team. I was part of the swimming team, part of the public speaking team, which if you know me is not a surprise because I can talk for hours. Like that's not a problem. So I had a great time in high school. I mean, I traveled with the school. We when we did athletics, we didn't travel just to, for example, to Toledo or Cincinnati that we traveled and visited other state school for the blinds or visually impaired for our athletics. So I went to Indiana, Kentucky. We went to Kansas a couple times. I think I went to Tennessee once. And so like, these are long bus trips. Most of them are bus trips. I mean, and listen, you're from Toledo. So when I say to you, we would take a bus down to like Kentucky or Tennessee for a weekend. Like you could have an idea. That's a heck of a bus ride, right?
No, that's like what, 6 hours?
I was trying to think what it would be down to this. To Kentucky alone was probably at least 4, if not more.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Tennessee, of course, is further south. Indiana is probably 3.5. And remember, these aren't like
not too bad.
These aren't in luxury cars. This is a school bus for Pete's sake, right? So not always the most comfortable, but really a lot of memories made, a lot of competitions, a lot of everything. But yeah, that was me. As a kid, I was a big nerd, and I was the stereotypical nerd.
Nice. I kind of relate with the bus rides because I was in choir in high school, and so we'd go for big, long rides to go do these choir tournaments, and I'm just like, I always hated choir. I just needed to get an elective done. I just needed to check the box. You either had to do band or you had to do choir. You had to do something musical, and I'm like, yes, we're doing choir. So,
yeah, I guess in a way, though, the long bus rides weren't as big of a deal to me as I think about it because from the age of probably I don't know, 3 or 4. I lived in a split parent home, and at first my father lived in Cincinnati. So,
Mm-hmm.
for those who aren't Ohioans
It's
like
about a
us,
2 hour drive.
that's 2.5 hours from Columbus to
Yeah.
Cincinnati. Then he took a job in my early teen years, maybe, where he moved to Muncie, Indiana, where Ball State
Okay.
is. And that was probably, my memory tells me without looking, that was probably 3.5 to 4 hours each way. So think about every time you want to go visit your father for, Christmas, Thanksgiving, summer break, whatever you can think of. That's the car ride you're facing each way,
Mm-hmm.
So listen, with my visual disability, I can't drive in real life. I'm a lifelong passenger, and I'm as comfortable as heck being a lifelong passenger. It doesn't bother me a single bit.
I'm the opposite. I have to be driving. So I'm a truck driver, and so driving is everything for me. And so it's like, and I'll talk to people, and they're like, I can't believe that you like are comfortable doing these things. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go 130 down the interstate on a motorcycle because I know what the bike's going to do. I
Mm.
understand it. And there's people that do that and they don't understand it. You're like, oh, I'm not saying you should do that. You shouldn't. Don't go 130 down the interstate. It's how
Yeah,
you
please
die.
don't do that.
But at least I'm not going 200 like the guys on the CBR 1000s are. So yeah, I think has it been interesting being a lifelong passenger? Like, is it frustrating because you can't just go somewhere?
Um, it used to be like, yeah, it used to be very frustrating. And listen, as anyone who knows me knows, or will get to know me knows, I'm pretty stubborn and I'm pretty independent. I will ask for help, but I would rather be stubborn and do it myself if I can.
Hmm.
So, like, unless I have to, you won't find me asking for someone for a ride. Like, I'd rather figure it out on my own. And of course, I mean, it's weird to think, in today's society of 2024, we're only what 10 years maybe into Uber existing, Lyft,
Yeah.
Uber, rideshare existing. So think about before that, my life was full of bus rides and a lot of walking, a lot of having to really plot where you live based around the amenities or the neighborhood you live in, of what's around you. Like, is your grocery store walkable? Is Best Buy, Target, restaurants walkable? So, I mean, yeah, it can be frustrating to need to get places. Luckily, living in I know we're going to get to living in Portland, Oregon now, we have a pretty great transit system that goes just about everywhere, including a few train lines. So it's not as bad as it could be. But yeah, I'd have to pull up and see, but I'm a heavy Lyft and Uber user. I've probably got, oh gosh, I would think at least, part of me says at least probably to combine at least 1,000 rides between the two services.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's frustrating, but it's not thanks to technology.
Interesting. Interesting. So, how's your? Sorry, we'll have to get back up. So, as a kid, any racetracks you went to? A lot of people like to talk about the racetracks they went to as a kid.
No, sort of the weird part about this story, honestly, is that as a kid, I played the original NASCAR Papyrus game.
Hmm.
I can't tell you. I mean, I must have, when I say a kid, I had to be preteen. I didn't exactly take it serious. I probably treated it more like an arcade game than the sim it was. Um, I was not a big racing fan as a kid. Like, we would catch the occasional Indy 500 on TV because that was a big deal, back in the 90s. And there were obviously, as a couple drivers from Ohio who raced or still do race, and so that was a big story locally. But um, which turned out to be kind of an awkward thing. My first full length race I ever watched was the 2001 Daytona 500. Like, I don't know why. I was like, hey, I want to watch this. I don't know. Like, I knew of NASCAR, obviously. I knew of the Daytona 500. I knew what it was. But my first full length race, flag to flag on TV, would have been the 2001 500.
Is that interesting? You get introduced to NASCAR with Dale Earnhardt dying.
Yeah, and it's more interesting because a lot of people forget that earlier in that race, there's a much bigger wreck
Yeah.
that I'm pretty sure it's Tony Stewart that gets like airborne in that wreck. Um, And so I remember we watched the race, and I went back to my room to play video games or whatever. I was a one. I would have been just 17, maybe 18 at the time. I remember checking like whatever ESPN or some NASCAR website that night, and was like, oh, like NASCAR driver dies in wreck, and I was like, and I remember in my head thinking that must be Tony Stewart because like that guy's up in the air and flipping around in this
Mm-hmm.
wreck. I'm like, wait, it was him? Like it was Earnhardt? Are you serious? Like I remember that him having that thought in my head of like, this doesn't make sense. Like how is it him and not the guy who's airborne?
That makes sense. Yeah, I wasn't even alive when
Oh my
that
gosh.
happened. That make you feel old?
Ancient. Yeah. Because I wow. I graduated high school. Let's see, that would have been February. So I graduated in June of that year. So
It
yeah,
still wasn't born.
I was
Still,
probably out. I was probably out of high school before you were born. That makes me feel incredibly
you
old.
were out of high school before I was born. I'm 22 years old.
My goodness. In fact, actually, stories are kind of coming back as we do this. I remember, and I've never really talked about this publicly, I don't think, but I was selected by my class to do the senior speech at graduation.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was a huge NASCAR nerd. I really when I do something, I'm full speed ahead. When I anything I nerd out about, even to this day, and I don't have a copy of it. I wish I did. I don't know where the videotapes are. I wish I did. But my graduation speech was a full speech that made a metaphor between graduating and NASCAR.
That sounds about right. That sounds like something.
Um,
So like even like something that I've done is like, so you know it's called the Temple of Speed, right? You know
mhm,
why? Because it's I tried to tie in motorsports to religion. It's hard, but I
I'm
found
sure it is.
ways. I found ways.
Yep.
So
I
maybe we could.
remember the one part, I guess the two parts I remember for sure. Um, I remember comparing high school to college by graduating from, at the time, I guess would have been
Bush.
the Bush series, yeah,
Hmm.
up to Cup, which at the time would have been Winston Cup.
Exactly.
Um,
Next, I guess next tells what, 05 or
yeah,
04?
next helmet 04, 05, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's somewhere around there. And then I remember comparing thinking your sponsors and interview to like all like my teachers and my mentors and friends and family. Those are the two parts I remember for sure that happened.
Wait. You did an interview NASCAR style.
It
You're
wasn't
like,
an
yeah, I
interview, but I
want to
remember
thank all
saying,
my.
oh yeah, but it wasn't an interview. But in my speech, I said, well, this is a time where a NASCAR driver would thank their sponsors, but here are my sponsors, Mrs. So and so and Mr. So and went through the whole list of just, any kid who would thank all their teachers and mentors in high school. I kind of use that as this is your metaphor to thanking your sponsors and an interview is this list right here. I remember that specifically. And I remember the comparison to Bush and Cup. I know there's a whole speech, but I don't remember anything else really about it, unfortunately.
It was 22 years ago. You expect yourself to remember this
I
stuff?
wish I did. That was like, I know it's so super nerd, and but I wish I had a copy of it or a videotape of it or something that I could. I'm sure watching it back, I'd be like, oh, that was so cringe. What were you
See,
doing? But at the time, like that was so cool of a thought that just was different than your typical like graduation speech, right?
hmm and like I'm thinking about like my mission farewell. So like in my like I'm going to do a 2 year mission, like I told you. And so before you leave, you do a talk right before you leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I think it's similar. I'm like, oh, I want to record that. I'm like, oh, somebody can't just sit in the chapel and throw up the phone and record it, you know. So I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get my phone. I'm gonna get the recording app. I'm gonna sit there and set it there while I do my thing. I'm like, that's good work. You know? So no,
Yeah, I mean,
I
I know
understand. I just wanted to
somewhere
save those. So.
here. This will show how old I am. I know somewhere there might still be a VHS tape of this graduation ceremony. A, where said tape is, I don't know. And B, even if I found it, good luck finding a VCR player to play said VHS tape, assuming it's still in playable condition 22 years later. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows how it would degrade. So, all right. So, first ever race watched was 2001 Daytona 500. And so ever since then you just dove in since that race.
Basically, I dove in. I took a couple off years. I'm one of the fans that got bored during Jimmy's kind of decade of dominance with the 7 titles.
Mm-hmm.
About towards probably title 5 or 6, I got pretty bored because it was just like you kind of felt like you knew the outcome before the green flag fell to a certain extent. But yeah, so I kind of fell out of it, and I got back involved. This would be a hot take. I'm an avid believer in the playoffs. I think it makes it fun and interesting.
I agree.
I'm currently a cord cutter for TV services right now, so watching the races is tedious. It's probably a nice way to say that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
I'm on the same page. I get it.
right? Like I despise how much like YouTube TV costs. Because I kind of feel like it's a part of cutting the cord was to save money. Now you got YouTube TV costing $75 a month, and it's like that doesn't feel like I'm saving money anymore.
I'm going to lose money by doing YouTube TV.
Yeah. So luckily, some of the NBC races are on Peacock. Up through the finale. The ones that air on NBC proper will air on Peacock. The ones on USA will not.
Okay, I didn't know this because I'd always go to Peacock. I'm like, I want to watch the race. I'm going to go to Peacock, and because IndyCar always on Peacock, no matter what.
So for the
Peacock.
So for the NBC races, you need to go to the live channels portion of Peacock and just watch your live NBC affiliate, basically.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
See, now I know. Well, I wish I knew that a lot earlier.
But yeah, so I still I'm very aware of the races. I will watch either the extended highlights or sometimes NASCAR will put the full races on YouTube, like, a week or days or whatever it is later. You can catch it that way. But yeah, I mean, I watch NASCAR very avidly. I'm very aware of it. That's probably the only series I could say that I'm honestly an avid watcher of.
So then, as we're on the NASCAR subject, who's your favorite driver?
I feel like this changes a lot. I think currently it's probably Tyler Reddick. I'm a big fan of 2311. I'm a big fan of Bubba Wallace. He's been a big fan for a long time. So I enjoy both those drivers. I enjoy just there's so much youthful energy out of that team that kind of I know it's because it's a new team and there's things they're doing, changing the names. It's not their garage. It's like you call it the speed shop, and it's just small things they do to kind of give that youthful vibe that the sport needs. But I mean, I'm a fan of good, strong racing. I don't have. Probably the harder question would be the option of who do I not like. I've never been a sports fan who hates anybody. I may want certain people to win or certain teams to win, but I'm not that kind of person who's like, rooting for people to like break legs or to wreck or to, I can't stand that side of sports fandom. It's just very toxic in a way. But yeah, I'm a fan of 2311. I'm a fan of Joey Logano. I think that on top of being a fun driver, as Fox has used Joey for broadcasts of Xfinity, he is far above and beyond, I think, what most people thought he would be in the booth.
Oh, yeah. He's really good in the booth. I think Suarez does really good with him, too. I really do.
Suarez has been fun in the booth. Ryan Blaney has been fun in the booth. I mean, there's been some ones
Brad
that missed.
Keselowski.
Brad's good in the booth.
Kurt was interesting, but I don't think he quite had to. He was a little bit held back.
Yeah. Remember, was it, I guess now 2 seasons ago or 3 seasons ago when Fox kind of had that rotating cast after Gordon left to go to Hendrick full time? Mm-hmm. There were some awkward misses in that group, right? I mean,
oh yeah, Danica Patrick.
Oh man, we're gonna disagree.
Oh my gosh, I just find her voice annoying. Let's be honest.
So I think, I think Danica probably did the best as far as taking a racing term and dumbing it down.
Yes, she's really good at that. I will say
and
that.
and ultimately, like, sometimes, as you know, the short word we call ourselves as fans, the long form of that word is fanatic. That's what fan
Hmm.
stands for, right? So as fanatics, we get so engulfed in wanting all the hardcore information, wanting, every nerdy detail to be correct. But we forget sometimes that the purpose of a broadcast is to bring in new viewers and to really welcome people in and sort of open your arms and say, hey, come watch this with us and we're going to explain it to you. And Danica does such a beautiful job at saying, hey, whatever, we're talking about oversteer, understeer. Here's how we explain that. Or he's complaining about this being broken in the car and here's what it means for him. And I thought she did a beautiful job at, um, doing those things. Where I thought she got the short end of the stick was, like, I felt like Fox kind of set her up a couple times, making her do awkward interviews with former teammates or, drivers she had beefs with. And I thought that's not cool. Like, you're kind of setting her up to, like, fail. I know we're all watching for the drama of it, but, like, it felt kind of great. I will say the one awkward part, she didn't really seem to vibe with Clint Boyer. You could kind of tell I think she did 2 races. You could kind of tell by halfway through the second race, she was kind of over Clint. It felt like.
I think they were lucky that Harvick vibes with them even a little bit because Clint Boyer is hard to vibe with. But speaking of Bubba Wallace, we're going to disagree again. This is my favorite driver.
Okay.
So those two don't usually get along that well.
No, not that
Do
much.
you remember the Roval 2018?
When Bubba squirted the water afterwards?
Well, Bubba was flipping him off lap after lap after lap, right?
Right.
And Alex Bowman says, if he doesn't put that finger away, I'm going to give him a reason to give me the finger. And the Bowman dumps him, And
Yeah,
then
maybe I have my dates wrong. Maybe that wasn't the race where he squirted the water on Bowman.
that is the same race.
Okay, it is the same race. Okay,
Yeah. So what had happened was Bowman wrecked early in the race, right? It's similar to what happened in Chicago. Like, eerily similar to what happened in Chicago. Sorry for putting my voice away. I apologize. It's very similar. So, going to the bus stop, he misbraked and took out Bubba Wallace. Okay, and this is like the first 3 or 4 laps of the race. Okay, well, Bubba Wallace is mad, so he sits there and he flips him up lap after lap after lap in like stage 2. Okay, and Bowman has finally had enough, so he goes at him, gets him the bumper, and puts him up into the turn 3 wall. Okay? NASCAR's not mad. Like, you can't be doing the middle finger going down the... You gotta have... It takes 2 hands to drive the race car, Bubba. Come on. Then after the race, he's being seen by medical, right? Medical, Jeff Gordon's over there making sure he's okay. Like,
Yep,
this
that's what I
guy's
remember.
exhausted.
That's
and
what I
then
remember.
Bubba comes up and starts getting mad and sprays a water bottle in his face while he's being seen by medical. Gets it all over Jeff Gordon.
That's what I remember. That's why that stuck out to me. Was not so much the Bubba Bowman beef. It was, I remember the look on Jeff Gordon's face when he got squirted with water was just like, what?
What the heck, bro?
What the hell?
I'm a legend.
Yeah, right?
You don't mess with me.
Yeah, that's what I remember at that moment. Was that Jeff Gordon face? I vaguely remember who that was, Alex Bowman, but I remember it was a Hendrick driver.
Yeah,
because Gordon was there, right?
I'm not a Hendrick fan. Like, if you look behind me, I got a Jimmy Johnson 84 die cast, but Bowman, number 6 Mark Martin, number 6 Brad Kozlowski, 17 Chris Buescher, Bowman, Kyle Busch. Then we got 2 NASCAR die cast. One,
Nice.
I think it's 2010 Atlanta, and then we got the 2023 die cast. Here, I should have 2024 die cast somewhere. I don't know where that's been. But also, more Mark Martin. Like, there's Mark Martin everywhere behind me. This is my childhood car. I showed it in the last podcast, but to show you
Nice. Very
childhood diecast. I'm not a big diecast collector, and then I started going to racetracks. So I went to Auto Club for my first race. So yeah, kind of interesting. So, what was your first physical race?
I've never been to a physical race, believe it or not.
Really?
No.
Have you never made it even like Toledo Speedway?
No, like I said, I wasn't a big fan until, as an adult, and then at that time just going to races. Funny enough, I was never aware of Toledo. The closest I would have been aware of, you may remember, there was a couple years, I think in 03, 04, where the NASCAR truck ran at Mansfield.
Okay.
Actually, maybe you don't remember, and I think how
That's
young you are.
Indiana, isn't it?
No, Mansfield's in Ohio. It's about 45 minutes north of Columbus on the way up to
Okay.
Akron.
Okay.
Um, there's this little short track called Mansfield Speedway. They ran there, I think, for 2 years before they stopped. That would have been the closest I've been. Even living in Cleveland, I think at one point, if I remember right, I think IndyCar ran a Grand Prix maybe out of the Cleveland airport. I think that vague memory tells me that. Now living out in Portland, I mean, I could. They have the Xfinity race here every year. They do IndyCar out here every year. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, as I get older, Bryant, like I was having this talk with a friend today. The idea of going out somewhere like to, I don't know, a football stadium, a racetrack, a baseball stadium, or just sitting at home with my big TV and watching it at home. As I get older and older, that idea of watching it on TV becomes more and more and more appealing. Like
Okay.
I should go to PIR at some point. That's the track here in Portland,
Mm-hmm.
Portland International Raceway. I probably should
Yeah.
go. The biggest deterrent that I've been told by friends is that very little of the grandstands have any kind of like
Shade.
shade or
Yeah.
covering. And I'm not like I listen. I'm a nerd. I
Yeah.
sunburn pretty easily. If I go to a racetrack for 2 or 3 hours to watch a road course race, I'm going to come home like a piece of like KFC chicken. Like I'm just gonna.
Give me the extra crispy chicken, eh?
Oh, 100. I went out to the pool here where I live a month ago, maybe, and I was out there too long, and I'm literally like my neck, my shoulders, my back was just like as red as like a Folgers coffee can. It was just like,
That's pretty
yeah,
red.
yeah, it was bad. So I burn easily. So no, I've never been. I've been to NFL games. I've been to basketball games, but I've never been to a racetrack.
Is it on the bucket list?
Yes, but more so for the social experience. So
Okay.
later, I know you in your notes to talk about the team that I run. We're in a process of planning a real life meetup, probably for an IMSA event.
Okay. That's a Daytona 24?
No, we're probably thinking next year's 6 hours of Indy.
Okay. All right.
That's sort of what's roughly written down right now in erasable ink.
When I come back from my mission, I want to. So one I was trying to hit was the Detroit Grand Prix IMSA weekend, right? I want to do Long Beach, and I want to do the 6 hours of Indy to camp tent.
Nice. That's a
Um,
good. Yeah, that's a good goal. So we're a big team. Lots of people from lots of places. We figure Indy's pretty central,
yeah,
in the
that makes
map.
sense.
And the problem with Daytona for some people is, listen, I'm sure it's a wonderful experience. I would love to go, but it's right after all the holidays.
Hmm.
So people have just spent a lot of money on the holidays typically. Depending upon your job, you may or may not even be allowed to take PTO in the first month of the year. So when we
Hmm.
were talking about planning a team event, it just didn't seem like those two things combined would be conducive.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I've already paid for most of my stuff for Daytona. That's gonna be my first IMSA race ever. Is
Nice.
Daytona. I'm gonna go to the 24. So hopefully
Nice.
that goes well. But yeah, no, that's so. You move away from Columbus
Mm-hmm.
for a job with a
Mm-hmm.
bank.
Yep.
So you move to Salem, Oregon,
Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon.
I knew a
Okay.
couple friends out here online, who I moved out. I visited here once to make sure like that I could meet them and they weren't like serial killers or anything.
Right.
And the vibe was really good. The city was beautiful. And yeah, I moved. I needed to move. On top of getting the job, I needed a change of scenery in my life on multiple levels.
Okay.
I was not motivated to succeed. I was living in a place where I was living with an ex partner who, honestly, and thank you to that person, was really taking care of me still, even though we were exes, and was helping, like, pay bills and pay rent. And I was taking advantage of that. And I knew that. Like I wasn't working full time because I knew I had a safety net or a fail safe, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That I knew that I needed to do something to kind of make me want to succeed, if for lack of better words, right? Um, I moved in '06. Uh, December of '04, December 26th to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my mother to cancer. And after that, the family bond kind of wasn't as strong as it was, and I just I needed to do something different. I needed to succeed in life, and I knew if I moved out here, yeah, I knew friends would help me a little bit, but obviously, you can't move off a friend. You can't make them or hope they'll pay your rent or buy your groceries or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And so I knew I needed that kick in the pants to succeed. And that's what it was, right? From the day I moved out here, I had a full-time job when I moved. I had taken a job as a bank teller. Um, it was a very healthy thing to do. It was very scary, obviously, because you're moving literally from Ohio to Oregon. It's a heck of a flight, to say the least.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I moved, oh gosh, I'm thinking 2 50-pound suitcases, a carry-on bag, and then later like three UPS boxes
Mm-hmm.
arrived, and that's what I moved with, and I had to succeed from there.
Kind of force yourself into a box to try to progress. That's interesting. That's kind of where I'm at with the whole mission thing. I'm like, okay, I got to pack up my entire apartment and figure some way to store all this, and then I'm literally just going to leave for 2 years.
Wow.
I'm going to force myself into this box, learn a whole bunch of stuff, try to bring people to Christ. So I feel that. I'm going through that struggle. I'm like, this is nerve wracking, but I know I'm going to learn a lot. So I'm sure you're in the kind of same shoes there.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it was a lot of learning. Think about I moved here. I don't know, 3 days, 4 days before my new job started. I had to learn a public transit system. Um, where things were, where the store was, for Pete's sake. That sounds simple, but it's not always, right? Like
It's hard when you have to do public transit to get there.
and even if not, you just don't know. I mean, listen, the stores and the restaurants that you and I would be used to in Ohio maybe aren't the same as they are out here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask someone out here where a Bob Evans is, they look at you like said a foreign language. No one out here knows what a Bob Evans is, or a White Castle, or even a Kroger. Now we have a Kroger branded affiliate out here. Out here we have Safeway and Fred Meyer.
Oh, Fred Meyer, yeah.
And we have Fred
Okay.
Meyer out here.
So I live in Utah now.
Okay.
So I kind of get a little bit more of that West Coast feel.
Right. But, certain things, one of my favorites as a kid, let's go to Rallies, let's go to Checkers. No one out here knows what the heck that is, right?
There's a Checkers actually in American Fork.
Okay. Well, that's closer than I thought. I had one to me, but still not drivable from where I am, right?
I don't think it might be a different Checkers I'm thinking.
Okay. But yeah, it was a big adjustment. It was a big adjustment in my life, and kind of dealing with the new family dynamic. It was a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about your job. So you moved out there to do fraud analyst. Can I ask what your day-to-day job looks like?
Well, I moved out here to be a bank teller.
Okay,
I'll feel comfortable saying is it's a long time ago now. I left them 15 years ago. I worked for Bank of America.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I guess in the height of them first being involved in NASCAR. That was sort of my specialty as a teller was, at the time, and maybe they still are, I have no idea. Bank of America was all about branded credit cards and what we called affinity cards, meaning you didn't just get a Bank of America credit card. You got the Bank of America NASCAR card or the Bank of America NFL card or what have you, whatever it was. And so back then it wasn't just the NASCAR card. There were probably, I don't know, 20, 25 drivers you could put on your card. And I knew all of them. And, my manager would always come and say, hey, who's this guy? Oh, he drives the number one Pennzoil, or he drives and they would always kind of laugh at it. And so that's fine. We had fun with it. So I was a bank teller for a number of years, which is high stress in more ways than you could probably imagine. It is, first off, you're dealing with a lot of money, and you have to let go of that thought instantly. If you let the idea consume you that you're holding lots of money in your possession, those are typically the people who kind of get in trouble for stealing, actually, because they let that idea of money consume them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're running teller transactions, you're talking to customers all day. You're still trying at that time, which I know is a much different culture now. You're trying to kind of refer them to open new products or to get a new checking account or a new credit card. And that's all very different now. And I always say the one hard part about being a bank teller is that a lot of people who use banks are repeat customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if I'm a bank teller and you come in today and you're grumpy today, either at me because I said no, we can't help you with something, or you're grumpy because of work or school or relationship problems or whatever, that's cool. You're going to take that grumpiness out on me, but then you're probably going to come back tomorrow, next week, next month. And a bank teller just kind of has to pretend like, oh, hey, how are you? And like, as if nothing happened the interaction before, right? And that's a difficult skill to kind of let go of that and be like, oh, hey, you were a jerk yesterday, but hey, I'm happy to see you. That's not the easy skill that it sounds like it is, right?
Oh, it's hard.
Like I later, when I moved banks into where I work now, my first job was working in a call center for credit card customer service. And like, that's different because listen, if someone is on the phone with you and they're rude or they're mean or they're abrasive, yeah, it still stinks, but like there's so many customers and the odds you ever talk to that person again are pretty low. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, it's not the same idea as being a bank teller, in that respect. And so then I went, changed banks, started in credit cards, and I really started to delve into a fraud career field of different areas. Mostly more so, not so much about like debit card fraud or credit card fraud, but mostly centered around, I guess, large transactions. So it's not a secret in the States that if you are doing cash transactions of a certain amount in a bank, they're going to fill out paperwork about you. They're called CTRs.
Okay.
It's 10,000 and a penny or more. So my first job was reviewing those paperworks that branches would fill out, fixing the errors tellers would make or asking more questions if necessary. And it really kind of started down this fraud career field. And so now, I work in a job where I act as a liaison and help answer questions for law enforcement about fraud cases. I work from home. Most of my job is email based, which is both a blessing and a curse, believe it or not. It sounds cool because like no one's calling you and but then you're just like, sometimes a phone call, like I could probably answer your question in 30 seconds in a phone call, or we can trade 8 emails.
Yeah.
I'd almost run to the phone call, but that doesn't happen in my job. So, I mean, I'm going to be vague on purpose. I can't talk about the cases and hint at them. What I would say to you, I think I can say, money controls everything. Which sounds obvious, but not obvious. So anything you can think of that's happened over time, there's money involved in there somehow, either to get to some place, to make an event happen, the items purchased to make said event happen. Whatever happens in that event, you could think of any major news headline you can think of. There's money involved in there somewhere. Maybe not at the front level of it, but let me explain that in a different way that's not anywhere than my work. We love auto racing. We love either NASCAR or F1 or IndyCar. We nerd out or geek out over the cars and the engines and the tracks, but there's money in the background that makes all that happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like money trades hands between to make engines or to visit the racetracks or to whatever, pay your entry fee into the league or whatever. So take that philosophy and now think of any major news story that's been up in the news recently. There's money involved somewhere in that in that process. And that typically answers a lot of questions about why, who, when, where, why, the questions about what happened. And that's what the bank will investigate sometimes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Who, what, when, where, why, what's going on? You know, something bad going on, basically.
Yeah, maybe not even bad, maybe questionable, maybe
Yeah.
some of it is bad, some of it's really horrible, and I see and read some really horrible things sometimes, and some of it's just more notable things that happen that just that happen in the news that just there's still money involved somehow, and the truth about money is that it doesn't have an opinion, it doesn't have an affiliation, it doesn't have a agenda. If you follow the money trail, you're going to find out information that's not biased, it's not opinionated, it's just what it is, right? It's like saying if I wanted to take a picture of your day today, um, if I had access to your bank account, I could probably do so by looking at, like, where did you make purchases today? Did you go to Starbucks? Did you have fast food? Did you, what have you? Right. And I could do that on a daily basis, or I could do that on a monthly basis and carve out details about your life just by watching where the money flows.
It's true. True. Joke's on you. I paid everything with cash today. So,
There you go. Good for you.
joke's on you. True story, but usually I use my card. I just sold something, and so I'm getting, using cash. But let's talk a little bit about glaucoma. Is the
Mm-hmm.
disability you have, the visual disability, right
That is
now?
where I am now. Yeah. I've had
Thir-
okay, sorry.
13 eye surgeries. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So as I said earlier, my first eye surgery was I think it was 6 or 8 weeks old, for cataracts in both eyes. And from there, it was just felt like a nonstop. Um, Mostly I think at first related to like eye muscles and repairing them, or hopefully fixing them. There's a few of those as a child. Um, and then at some point around the age of 10, I think, I was diagnosed with glaucoma, which is super rare for anyone of that age, to be diagnosed with glaucoma. Typically, the stereotype of glaucoma is an elderly person.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, there wasn't quite as much known about glaucoma as where we are now. Um, there were some eye drops available, and there was some treatments available, but it was just not as common as it is nowadays. Everyone knows their glaucoma because of some of the stereotypes around it. But um, at that time, the age of 10, I still had vision in both eyes. Um, the rough, I guess, TLDR of glaucoma is basically it's a process where everyone has a process where basically, for lack of better terms, liquid flows in and out of your eyeball
Mm-hmm.
all day long. Glaucoma is a process where something blocks that liquid from not getting out. It creates what we call pressure. And that pressure can do harm if it builds up. It can destroy um, muscles and do damage and just whatever it wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there's drops you can take. There's surgeries they can do where they try to kind of alleviate the pressure. And so most of those are pretty non-invasive. Well, I say non-invasive. They're still they still knock you out, but they're laser surgeries basically. And if you if you respond well to anesthesia, it's a same day process. If you're me and you don't respond well to anesthesia, you stay overnight every time. Um, I listen. You give me a little bit of anesthesia, and I can sleep for days.
Mm-hmm.
The best nap ever. Um, so I had a few of those, and then around the age of 14 ish, um, via glaucoma, I lost all vision in my right eye. No light perception, no nothing. Well, then what can happen, and what was explained to me afterwards, is that glaucoma doesn't give up. It then begins to basically inflame or irritate the nerves in the eye and cause just pain might be a strong word, but irritation, I guess, is a very good word for it. Just you're not brought to your knees in pain, but you're aware of it. It's annoying kind of thing. So I went and saw an eye doctor at the Cleveland Clinic around the age of 20, 21, and basically explained to me, this is what's going on. Glaucoma is doing this to your eye. Basically, we can prescribe you medication via a form of an eye drop that will numb it and kill the pain. But like any medication, you may develop an immunity to it, right? Like you may just get used to it, and it might stop working. In which case, the answer is we go and we do what's called an inoculation, which is basically, I'll save all the gory details and to say it's removing the eye. Or option B is we just skip all the eye drops and we go to the inevitable ending of just removing the eye and skipping the whole eye drop part.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of consultation with family. I went back to my childhood glaucoma doctor in Columbus, Ohio, and had a conversation. And, I think to my friends who will listen to this and anyone who will get to know me, I'm a rip the Band-Aid off kind of guy. I don't like beating around the bush. If we're going to end up at the process of removing the eye, let's just move to that point and not beat around the bush about it. And so I had that surgery done. That was my last major surgery, was what they call an inoculation. And so basically, it's not exactly what Hollywood would make you think. Like, I don't have a quote unquote glass eye. I get asked that all the time. So the answer is no, I don't. What they do nowadays is they basically put in a prosthetic, for lack of better terms, let's say they put in a round ball to hold the shape of the eye socket. And then you go see a different doctor, and they basically make you like a permanent contact lens.
Yeah.
For lack of, it's not permanent. It can come out. It sucks to have it come out. Because basically it's wide enough that it's supposed to fit under the eyelids. It's not supposed to come out. It's not your normal contact lens that people wear for vision purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So they take pictures of your good eye. They try to color code. They match it. And then basically they paint you a contact lens that sits there, and it's good for years. I want to say on average about 8 years before you have to have it replaced.
Okay. Interesting. So are you completely blind in the one eye?
And the right eye, I have no vision whatsoever, nothing. And in my left eye, it's about 70 to 80% of normal vision. So normal, quote unquote, eyesight is 20/20.
Yeah.
I run about 20/80. So what that would mean for people who don't know is that basically the way that reads is for what a 20/20 person can see at 80 feet, I have to be within 20 feet to see that thing.
Okay.
That's how that chart reads. So the first number is the standard 20 feet. That's what I need to be compared to the other numbers, how far away a perfect vision can be. Like, so if you hear something like, I have 2100, I have 2160, 2200, whatever. The 200 is whatever you can see at 200 feet away. I need to be within 20 feet to see said thing.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about your racing. So you race a lot of you race NIS officials. What night do you race? You do fixed or custom?
I typically do a bit of both. I probably prefer the opens because I think the different setups allow for a little bit better separation of the field than the fixed when you're all sort of on top of each other. But sometimes, setups are setups. It's, what's a winning setup for you is not a winning setup for me, and vice versa, right? We all have different preferences of how our car drives, and some setups are great and some setups aren't. Some fixed setups are great. Some fixed setups aren't, Yeah. So as far as what nights, I typically, not during NFL season, I will do Thursday nights. During NFL season, that changes. I'll typically do a Friday night race, which is open, and then turn around Saturday morning at noon Eastern and do the fixed. Those are my two
Yeah.
main ones I try and get into. And then how much more I do depends on my love of the track.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to I despise Darlington as a track as to race it. I don't feel the need to do more than one or two at Darlington. But if we're doing a super speedway or Kansas or Vegas that I love, I'll do all of them. Like I'll do as many as possible. But yeah, that Friday night Saturday morning combo is probably my main NIS runs.
Okay. Interesting. So in NIS, you won the 2024 Daytona 500 winner. I am as well. I wish I had my trophy with it. It's in the other room. But how was that? Was that like a dramatic, or was it just kind of what happened there?
No, it really wasn't dramatic. It went green for a very long time. And at some point, fuel strategies began to come and play under green. And it kind of felt like more, for older fans, it felt like more like a 2004, 2005 tandem 500.
Mm-hmm.
I think my memory for that would be like, I think when Junior won his first 500, it was more of a tandem race than it was what we think of as the draft pack, right?
Yeah.
So like there was someone behind me who was pushing, and we were saving. We somehow got together, and it just worked. But it wasn't the big 22 car pack, which in a way, listen, that kind of bummed me out. I'm not going to lie. Winning that kind of 500 would be, amazing.
Amazing.
That said, I want a 500. A 500 is a 500 is a 500.
Exactly.
I'm not going to discredit it by any means, right? It was a monkey off my back. I had been trying since I first joined iRacing back in 2016 to win a 500. So doing it 8 years later felt like a humongous monkey off my. All I remember saying to myself out loud and to my friends in Discord was "finally." That's all I said. I didn't say anything else, and they all understood. I was like, "That's it. Like I'm done." That was a Thursday afternoon. Yeah, Thursday afternoon. So that would have been open. I did also do the Saturday at noon fixed, and I came within 3/4 of a lap of doing it twice, and that would have been classic draft pack style, and someone pulled a bad bump from behind on turn one on the white flag, and I went from first to like 30th in the last lap, and I was, boy, it's weird to use the word heartbroken when referring to a simulator or a video game.
Well, it is though.
It was frustrating. Yeah. And honestly, like both of them. I mean, listen, even if I won a tandem race, I was still nervous. I was having to keep the nerves calm a little bit. Like I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to screw it up. I'm not going to, drift up out of the corner too high, or I'm not going to, any dumb thing I'm not going to chop off the guy behind me. Or it was so nerve wracking, but it was a big relief to do it.
When I won mine, I had to make some pretty insane blocks to get to my win in 2024 for my Daytona 500. So it was an insane experience, and I'm kind of in the same shoes. So I own a league called Lightyear Racing League, over 250 drivers, 13 leagues on the console. All right, and I've won every single super speedway race you could think of, in every way imaginable. I was the super speedway king on NASCAR Heat 5. I was really good. There's one race I could never win. I felt like a classic Mark Martin. And we have multiple, right? Because we'll do 2 or 3 seasons in a year,
right.
And
right.
So I never could win that Daytona 500. And then I came on to iRacing, and I did a couple of league Daytona 500s, and then I had the official, and I finally pulled it off. First one ever. Everybody's like, you're so lucky. You did your first Daytona 500, and you won your first Daytona 500.
That's time to call it a day right there.
Yeah, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I nearly won the Coke 600 a few months later twice. Literally, I was a corner away from winning, and I got dumped. And then again, I was leading the race with 30 laps to go, and I got dumped again. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Yeah, are you serious? I got dumped by a lap car in the second one. I'm like, really again? Like, come on. So I almost did. I was going for like the whole, like I was going to go do that. If I won Charlotte, I was like, okay, now I need to go try to win the Brickyard. then Phoenix, and then if they do Martinsville this year, I'm not sure if they did. I don't think they did do Martinsville this year.
No, this year was Daytona. Oh gosh, Daytona, Charlotte, Indianapolis, and
Mm-hmm.
Bristol.
Bristol. Yeah, I was like, can I play? I was like, it'd be cool if I could go through and win them all, but it didn't quite work out. I got so close though. So Daytona 500 winner, 2-time NIS Talladega winner, 1-time Fall Daytona. You're a draft master, just a classic draft master. So what do you see? What's the trick? What can you tell us?
To me, it's about patience.
It is.
I am not a junkie who needs to be up in the pack the whole time. In fact, I probably frustrate some teammates because, if we're even like we just got done with Daytona for NIS a couple weeks ago. It's only 80 laps. It's not that long, but I don't need to be up in the pack for at least the first 40 laps. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay being, you think back to what you see on maybe older NASCAR more than current, but you see like the guys who are willing to hang back.
Mm-hmm.
I think the playoff points and the stage points have maybe changed this a little bit in current modern NASCAR, but you think back to older NASCAR when you see some veterans, maybe like a Michael Waltrip would hold back for a while, or you maybe see Mark Martin back there. I'm okay being back there because listen, the moment that caution comes out, it puts me right back in the field. I don't
It
need to
don't
worry
matter.
about,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter. So, depending on the race, I have a mental number in my head of when I want to go. Some of that is determined on distance. Some of that's determined upon how much of the field is or isn't left at that
Mm-hmm.
in that race. Some of it's determined on my mood in that moment. And sometimes you break that goal. Sometimes you find yourself and you're like, oh, I'm moving forward. Well, I guess we're going now. Like you have to do
Mm-hmm.
that. But I do. I think a lot of drivers just aren't patient enough, and you want to be up there three. And I get you want to be 3 wide at Daytona. That's sort of that adrenaline junkie speaking, right? You want to be up there 3 wide and battling and bumping, but no, I want to be there at the end of the race. I want to win something. That said, I've had my own set of failures, anywhere from causing a wreck to being in a wreck to maybe one year not having enough gas to get to the end. I've had my own sets of failures. I'm not perfect, but I do. I think that being patient, being willing to sit back and let things happen. Yeah, there's a risk to it. What if nothing does happen? You're probably going to be a lap down at some point. That's happened,
Mm-hmm.
but more times than not, you're okay.
Oh, that's some good advice. All right, so those are your big accomplishments. All right, and you also run a motorsports team. Let's talk a little bit about that. You won the Glen, Spa, um, Le Mans, Nürburgring. I think I missed one.
No, I mean, well, we've done a lot of them. So I co-own iRacing team called Top Beta Rossi Esports. Myself and Doug Rice have co-owned it now since 2021. And it's a great group of guys. It really is. It's phenomenal in every way. We have a lot of fun with it. It's a team, but in a way, it's family. It's a community. It's so much more than just guys who come in to race. And I'm proud of all of them for the things that they do. And I get to live vicariously through some of those things they do. And that makes me a happy person. But when I discovered iRacing in 2016, I had no idea what a team was. I had no idea what it did or how it worked. And probably, I think, about a year later in 2017, I discovered a team that was part of a gaming community that the racing team was a small part of. And I became a member and kind of worked my way through. And at some point, kind of got put in charge of it due to some lack of activity and just a desire to lead. And I led that group for probably, I don't know, 4 years or so. And then it became a point where there were some comments made by the leadership of the gaming community that weren't exactly thrilling. There were some stances made that just I had decided I could not, in good faith, support or be a part of. There were some comments, and this is a debate between me and them to this day, and that's okay. From my point of view, there were some comments made by them that were, let's say, less than open-minded, or even maybe at times borderline. I don't want to use the word homophobic, but let's say uneducated. Maybe is a better word. I don't want to brand anyone as something they're not. Um, and there were some rules and some policies about the group that just were not open-minded. There were things you weren't allowed to talk about, and they weren't exactly fair rules. One of the rules was you're not supposed to talk about, politics, religion, or sexual preference. And I get it. No one wants to talk politics because that's just sort of like the I hate you. I call it the I hate you topic. We can be friends for 20 years and, oh my gosh, you vote for that guy? No. You're an idiot. You're stupid. You're this, you're that, right? But, the problem with the don't talk about your sexual preference rule was, listen, like, you can say, hey, I went out to dinner with my wife tonight. In a way, you're sort of stating your sexual preference. Like, you're not directly, but you're saying, hey, I'm straight. I have a wife. But the moment that myself or any other member would state otherwise, that was kind of frowned upon. It was against the rules. And I had to make a decision, not just myself, but, Doug assisted. And I had a long talk with Doug and some others. And, on top of some comments that were made by the leaders, I had to make a thought in my process of, listen, like, I wanted to create a team that is a safe space. And my team today, Chopp'n It Up Esports, is a safe space for everybody. But in my heart, could I say my team was a safe space for LGBT members when there are rules that tells them they're not safe here, right? That I had to make that decision. That I can't say, hey, come race here, you're safe here. But, oh, hey, by the way, these big rules up here say you're not allowed to talk about it. That's not safe, right? It just wasn't working. And so there was a couple of comments made by leadership that were kind of uneducated and dumb, that maybe borderline homophobic, and we walked out. I just said, hey, listen, I don't want to be a leader in a group anymore that I don't believe in, that I morally oppose what's happening, right? And I walked out, and Doug walked out because of some similar feelings that weren't exactly 100% that, but on the same path. And a third member left with us who's no longer part of our team. And then, listen, I had no idea what was going to happen. Like, I said my goodbyes to the people in that group. I let them know I was leaving and why. And I had no idea what was going to happen, right? Like, we told them, hey, we're going to do this new thing called Chopp'n It Up Esports. Here's our mission. Here's what we want to do. If you're interested, here's a link to a new Discord. If you're not interested, I 100% understand. I'm not mad at you. Everyone has to make their own decisions in life.
Yeah.
For all I knew, nobody could have joined, right? Like, listen, the law of averages says that when you invite people to something, whether it be a dinner party, a birthday party, a bowling event, whatever event you're doing, maybe half the people actually show up that you invite, right? That's why you over-invite sometimes, because you don't know who's going to show up and not. To maybe the credit of myself and Doug as leaders, or maybe to the credit of those drivers for being open-minded, or maybe all the above and more, 31 of 32 drivers walked out in solidarity.
Oh, really?
We left with them. We left them without a race team. Like, that day, like, we left them without a race team.
Ouch.
And I'm not proud of that per se. Like, it wasn't my goal to leave them with nothing. My goal was to say, hey, I can't support that. Like, I can't do it, right? And we built Chopp'n It Up Esports from the ground up, very quickly. We now have a very distinctive paint scheme we're all proud of, and a logo we're proud of. It didn't start that way. We had to go through a couple iterations of graphics and designs and logos before we were happy. And we'll never do this again. One night in our very opening, maybe our first opening nights, we wanted to make a logo, and there were like, I don't know, 10 people all on a Discord call watching someone design a logo, and everyone had to give their little input. No, put it there. No. What about this over here? What about, like, if you've never sat through a process of 10 people trying to create a logo before, let's just say it's painful, right? It was painful. It was
Yeah,
like,
it's
all right,
pretty
I'm
fun.
done with this. Like, I'm good, thanks. Right. But since then we've grown. We've grown in reputation. We've grown, maybe not member count. Um, we've grown in experience. We've grown as friends, as family in some cases. As community members. So we've done a lot of things that just at times I think I don't know that we get spoiled. But we always talk about how we have to keep track of things because listen, the year moves by so fast. You forget things you've done. So like I'll say this now: the big monkey on our back as a team is the Daytona 24. We haven't won it yet. It has to happen. It's just, and I think we all put so much pressure on ourselves to make it happen that it's kind of like it's so much. But listen, we've won Sebring in the past. We've won Bathurst events. We've won the 20 this year. A few drivers won the Nürburgring 24 in the GR86. Um, we've won the 6 hours of Glen. We've won the Bathurst 1000. We've had drivers win the Indy 500, the Daytona 500, and I'm proud of all of them. And I know I'm forgetting a couple, and I know I'll get DMs and Discord saying you forgot my win, and I'm sorry, I probably did. But I'm proud of all of them, and sometimes even if I don't get to be in the car, this year we won a lot of events back to back. We did, I think, Nürburgring 24, Spa. I guess like we can call it the fake Le Mans. That's about
It's
what I call
Lamar.
it, and it's not. We can't actually call it that. But yeah, but like I don't get to drive those cars, nor am I good enough to drive those cars.
Hmm.
But living vicariously as a team manager still feels great to say, hey, I'm proud of you guys. Like I know the effort you put in, and I know the effort that goes into it. And so I'm proud of all those guys. And, the time we spend as a community just bonding is incredible at times.
I always loved running a team. We had I ran for Daytona this year. I had three different teams I was managing, and so I
Mm.
kind of understand where you're coming from. It's a hard thing to do. You gotta get people to work together. But you gotta ask: are you religious at all?
I am not. I am religious in the sense that I celebrate Christmas
Mm-hmm.
or religious holidays, maybe Easter, but celebrate them more probably in I guess, the
Traditionalist.
non-religious sense, right? And more of
Yeah.
your traditional, I don't want to say commercial sense, but maybe that's the best way to describe it. Um, I grew up with my father being an ordained minister in a church for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that in a lot of ways helped me form some opinions of my own about religion and the church. And yeah, no, I'm not really religious at all.
Do you mind if I share a message with you?
You can share.
Right. Uh, Tonight was institute. So I'm a church. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka some people call us Mormons. Um, but I'm just going to share a quick thought and then scripture, if you don't mind.
Sure.
But tonight I went to a devotional, and seemed like a lot of it was about. And one thing that I learned was don't judge. Like the big thing that I've learned is uh, throughout my journey is when I was younger, it was all about holding up appearances, making it look like, oh, I am this person, when I knew I wasn't. It was all about holding up appearances. And, it's not your place to judge anybody else if they do that either. But also, you need to be able to judge yourself and know where you're at. So just keep in mind, like, one thing that I was working through is like, yeah, all this person slept with Laura or whatever, this person did all these things or all these sins. Well, that's not for you to judge. I've done plenty of things, and like I'm not scared to admit what I've done because I know that I'm a better person because of it. I learned lessons, but you can judge me for it, but all that matters is the relationship between me and the man upstairs. That's what's important. So that's what, and you shouldn't also be going, oh, and boast and go, oh man, I'm so much, I'm so faithful. I love the Lord so much. That's but just keep in mind to be humble and not to boast, and to take care
Yeah.
of your own stuff.
I think that is a great message to not judge. And I think that goes a lot of ways, both ways, and maybe that causes part of my jaded view of certain ideas, the fact that I had, and I'm going to say the word religious family member, not to blame religion, but to put an emphasis on a point of,
Mm-hmm.
I had a religious family member say, after I came out, say to say to my mother, pardon me, how could you love your son who's gay? That's just morally wrong. I had a family member tell me that they knew I was going to go to hell because of who I am. I had another family member tell me after I went through a breakup that I'm not sorry for you because God doesn't want you to be happy if you're with this person. So I can't say as though I'm sorry that you're going through the heartbreak of a breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I think don't judge is a great lesson for life as a whole. Um, and I have religious friends who are very supportive, and I value that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, don't judge is a great piece of advice that needs to go every which way, and probably applies to more than just religion.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
my goodness, think about all the judging we do in iRacing about each other and how we drive and who
Yeah.
bumped who and who hit who and who caused the wreck, and all those things we do. Then you kind of judge from the car and you go back look over him and go, oh crap, I
I messed
probably
up.
caused that wreck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Yeah. I caught the in-race reporters who often have a judgment of how their wreck happened. And
Yeah.
when they get out of the car, if they bother to check the replay, they'll find out they were, sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're not right. Or hey, you think the 24 hit you. What you don't know is that someone hit the 24, and the 24 hit you, and you don't have a full story about what happened, right? And the amount of
Yeah.
arguing and screaming and yelling and profanity that happens in races is at times obnoxious, especially in the oval side. I don't do much road racing and iRacing, so
Mm-hmm.
I know in road it's less common to talk than it is in
A lot
oval. I do
less.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I know that I kind of joke sometimes, like, there's less talking in like a 24-hour split of like Daytona or Spa or something than there is in a single NIS race. You know, like but yeah, don't judge is a great piece of advice, and it's something I try to talk to the team about as well, which is, listen, before you get mad at someone about a wreck, go look at it,
Yeah.
or listen, what could you learn from that wreck? What could you do differently? Oftentimes, you may not be the main aggressor in the wreck. You may not like have done anything wrong, but what can you learn? What spot can you put yourself in better next time so you're not in that position of being around an aggressive driver? Or there are times in iRacing we've all seen a clip here or there where someone is just out to wreck someone and there's nothing you can do about it. But most times there's a teaching moment in every wreck. Um, Not always. Listen, sometimes super speed wrecks just happen and you can't avoid it. But maybe the teaching moment is, did you need to be 3 wide on lap 5? Could you have
No.
backed out? Right?
Yeah.
Usually there's a teaching moment somewhere in a wreck. And that's hard for people to hear when they're mad about being wrecked. But those exist. Don't judge and try to think about what happened or what is happening before you mouth off in voice chat.
Yeah, I know. And I think it's just important to realize everybody's on their own progression. And so, one person might be strong here, and you're not going to be strong in that same position, whether it's financially, spiritually, emotionally, spiritually, basically. So you always got to realize we're all on our own progression. We're all struggling. We all are going to make mistakes. If you think that you're perfect, you're not. You're part of the problem, and we're all progressing. And so I just want to help everybody and realize, hey, take a step back and think, how can I improve? It doesn't matter. What matters is how he judges. It's his judge, That's the final judge. And so you kind of got to think about what he's going to think. But I'm going to share a quick scripture here, and then we can pretty much get close to their signing out. We can say our goodbyes. I apologize to the Bible fiends and the Bible guys. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We believe in a book called the Book of Mormon that was translated in the 1800s. Um, I believe it's true. I think it has good messages, and if you look into it and look into the history, you'll know that, hey, there's actually something to this. So I'm going to be reading from Helaman 5, Helaman chapter 5, verse 8. And he's talking to his sons. So, and now, my sons, behold, I have somewhat more to desire of you, which desire is that ye may not do these things that ye may boast, but that ye may do these things to lay up yourselves for yourselves a treasure in heaven, ye which is eternal, and which fadeth not away, ye that may have a precious gift of eternal life, which we have a reason to suppose hath been given to our fathers. And so basically it talks about, hey, don't boast and worry about what you leave behind, not about what you take with you is one thing. And then like lay up your, and that's really the treasures of heaven. Like, okay, what am I leave behind me when I go? So that when I passed on, I'm looking down, it's like, okay, what difference did I make? Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. I know that in your guys' experiences throughout your life that you can make a difference if you decide to not judge and to understand everybody's situation. To know that, hey, this guy might be in a good spot or this guy might be in a bad spot, and to be sensitive of those things. And I know that you can make a difference in someone's life. So I just want to bear a quick testimony saying, hey, guys, like, I know you can find some joy in certain things and helping other people and basically doing the right thing. So I want to bear that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. But yeah, man, I appreciate you, Derek. It was quite a good podcast. An hour and 30 minutes is what we're headed towards. It is 12:16 at night, my time. I guess in the morning would
Yeah,
be.
11:17 here. I had to stop and think about. Yeah, you're an hour ahead, but
Yeah,
yeah.
Utah. Good thing I'm not in Ohio still. That would have been way late.
Yeah, that would have been way late, right?
Yeah. So, well, I appreciate it. Is there anything else you wanted to hit before we end the podcast?
I guess I do kind of talk about, like, you and I first connected via the Majors 24. Yeah. I don't know if you've talked about it previously in your podcast form, at least, about that experience. I think for someone, listen, it's not for everybody to go do race stewarding.
It's not. Definitely
it's not. That said, like, what I will say is, like, Mike and the team at Majors can always use more help.
Yeah.
And it's an awesome group. Listen, you and I both did 12 hours, not exactly the same times, but it's just 12 hours of looking at racing incidents, and
it's insane.
It's a lot. You are literally the equivalent of, like, I think the analogy is like drinking from a fire hydrant, basically. It's just information flowing into you, right? Like, it's just there. I think what people surprised me the first year. This year's my second year doing it. What surprised me the first year was how fast these darn things come in.
They come in quick. It's just
like lap 0, lap 1. People are already protesting.
Oh yeah. My gosh. Are you serious?
Yeah. Lap 1.
I was racing at the beginning of the race, and so because I raced for 3 hours, I broadcasted for 8. Okay. And then I volunteered for 12.
That's crazy.
So,
but that's all but like 1 hour. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Like, that's so we're sitting down as a group, we're watching incidents, we're making decisions as best we can about what we think happened, who was at fault, who wasn't at fault. And at some point, it's kind of weird. Like, this sounds odd to say. At some point, you lose track of time doing it. Because I mean, you never catch up.
Yeah. You never do.
We never catch up. Like, we're the end of the race. I think Mike still had to go back and look at some.
Yeah, he did.
Either as the race was ending or post race. I'm not sure what the timing of that was. but like there's always more to review, and so you're just
Oh yeah.
looking, at and there's certain trouble spots on the track we all get to know pretty well because we
Yeah.
see a lot of incidents there, a lot of corners and what have you. But
The Porsche curves are really bad.
the Porsche curves are bad. I think there's the couple of corners after Mulsanne are pretty bad. The is that the Ford chicane? The last couple chicanes before the start finish line.
Yeah,
The Ford chicanes.
they call them the Porsches or the short Ford chicanes.
Yeah, those are nightmares for us as
race control
review.
Yeah.
But it's a rewarding experience. You get to really, talk about wanting to get to know somebody. You do it fast in that group setting because you have to find the common grounds to agree on. And listen, we all don't agree on all the reviews.
No. Yeah.
But it's a rewarding experience. It's fun to do. I assuming there's a Majors 24 next year.
I was going to do it. I was literally just going to sit there for 24 hours straight and try to give Mike as much time as I could. I was like, I'm just going to sit behind a computer and just go and then take a dinner break and stuff. But like I said, I'm going to be leaving to go.
It's also an easy way to get your Majors coin. What do I have my Majors coin?
Mine's in the other room.
I didn't get mine. I actually just messaged Mike about mine today. I was like, hey, but I got one for last year already. I don't know where it is. But yeah, it's an easy way to get your Majors coin. No, it's not easy.
No, I was going to do as many hours as I could this year to help him this next year, obviously. But I'm going to be leaving to do a Sherpa mission. So,
and think about it. You might. This might be good news if you'd be gone because I'm assuming maybe by next year, if they have that whole rain thing figured out, Mike's going to let it rain in the Majors 24 next year.
Oh, there's going to be so many reviews. Oh my
right?
gosh. Because people are going to be breaking, they're going to be sliding on the waters. So, I know that was interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed our sitting with you because you were actually in the other group. All right, because I was leading. I first came in and I was like, what the heck? And we just kind of had to do it, And so I was leading one group and you were in the other group. I don't know if you were leading the group.
Kind of. We took turns, but yeah, at times leading the other group.
Yeah, I was leading my group for most of the time, and it was interesting. I was like, all right, I got to step up and lead. Someone's got to step up.
Yeah, I guess that's a good insight for people to understand is there's so many protests coming in that like we can't do it as one group. Like we would just be there we'd probably still be finishing about now.
We had 4 groups at one point doing RC.
Yeah. And there's some challenges with that. It probably means that Mike does great. Mike provides us guides and guidance about how to look at things and what to look at. But when you get 4 different groups, you're not probably always going to get 100%
the same consistency. And we didn't.
Right.
And that was what the big problem was. People were just throwing a fit saying, how is this one a racing incident, but this one is? You're like, oh, man. And there's people got death threats. And that's
probably where my customer service background kicks in a lot is just talking to people and just saying, hey, I hear you and I get what you're saying. Here's what I saw or here's what we saw and here's our justification. And yes, there are the outliers of people who behave poorly and are not good people. But for the most part, most people realize we're doing this for fun. I'll break down the fourth wall if it needs to be. We don't get paid to do it.
No.
It's a volunteer. Don't get me wrong. I'm not disrespecting or unappreciative of the Majors coin, but I put in 12 hours. I'm going to get a coin, and I appreciate that. But we're not making $20 an hour. We're not making anything per hour.
It's a $7 coin.
So a lot of people recognize that, right? And say, hey, listen, thank you for your time. We know it's a lot of work. Thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for letting me vent. Of course.
We got you, bro.
That happens. That's what we're here for is to hear that. And, and to do that process. And yeah, there are the bad actors who are just toxic and are going to say some awful things. And, that's unfortunate. Once again, that's probably where my customer service comes in. I've been told all kinds of awful things over the phone.
And just
whatever, right?
It don't matter, yeah.
Sure. It may hurt, but whatevs, and so, you just kind of go with it. But it's a great experience. I've had a blast doing it. You get to know each other. at times we're 3 teams reviewing, at times we're 1 team because maybe other people are off, doing the safety car procedure, or they're off just racing on their own teams or whatever, but yeah, you get to know a lot of people that way. You get to meet new people. I always encourage people to try. If you think it's for you, you're curious, try it out. I think you can volunteer for as little as 4 hours.
Yeah, you can
which will
volunteer
go
for
by
4 hours.
goes
Goes
by
by
fast.
quick. It'll go by
Fast.
quick. The 12 hours went by quick. Until you got to hour 11, and then you're just like,
that's where I was this year. So I moved into my now apartment the weekend before majors, I think it was. And I wasn't fully set. I was kind of set up, but I was still had boxes to unpack and was still kind of sleeping not very much at nights. And then oh, hey, let me go do 12 hours of majors. And man, I'd say when the 12th hour hit, I was like, oh, thank you. I want to go to bed. I went to bed.
You thought it was bad for you. I was called in. So I was only supposed to broadcast 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours. Then I get called in because everybody's saying, hey, this broadcaster won't wake up. Everybody's just dropping out. And I'm like, well, I'm here. And so I got called into Grid Vision, had to do Grid Vision for an hour. Then I got to the last hour. I did the last couple hours of Pit Stop TV. And so I was all over all kinds of broadcasts, involved in, it was insane. Ugh, I was part of so much of it. It was insane.
Yeah, and that's something else I guess you and I share. We commentate, but for different channels. I work with Race Spots, and I've done so for, I don't know, a little over a year. Which is a blast, for the record. It's a blast doing it. It's, I once again, fourth wall. I think it's fair to say you get paid something to do it, but it's not earth-shattering money.
It's not worth it. Yeah,
it's worth it if that's what your passion is, and your commentary.
Enjoy, yeah.
It's not you're not gonna pay your rent with it.
Definitely not. But
you'll pay maybe your iRacing subscription with it.
So one last thing. I just want to say, I'm obviously a member of Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They came out a few years ago and they said that they're not going to give anybody who is gay the priesthood, or they're not supporting that stuff. And I also want, but it was also said that just because somebody does that doesn't mean you gotta be mean to them or say they're going to, that's not how that works. Okay, all right. So I also want to let you know that, hey, I support you, man. Even with my religion, they believe a man marries a woman. That's what we believe, and I think that's okay that we believe that. And I also think it's okay that you don't believe that. All right, I think everybody needs to be accepting. That's one thing in my religion that we try our best is hey, we need to be accepting of everybody, even other religions, and understand everything because it's important. So I want to let you know that, hey, man, I support you. I have your back. I know we didn't talk about it a lot, but I want to make sure that you knew that, hey, I ain't judging you. I don't talk about the subject a lot because of with the stuff with my church, but I want to make sure you know that, hey, I'm not against it. All right. I'm not against it, but I'm not actually going to go out there and go and fight for you. All right. And I don't think you expect me to. Right.
I don't expect you to. It's always a nice welcome addition to see someone fight for it. It's always, it's always, welcome and appreciated. And, I don't expect anyone to fight my fights. That's not who I am as a person. I don't believe in rallying calls, and I guess both literally and physically. I'm a big kid. I can typically fight my own fights. So it's appreciated. It's maybe at times wishful thinking that more people would fight the fight and understand that there's different beliefs, and I guess who's right and who's wrong is why we call them beliefs and ideas, because of that. I think that's what I can say is that, it's always expected in wishful thinking. It's not expected. It's a hopeful and wishful thinking, but the things I believe in are mine. And I do wish more people understood, and when you see certain things happening in the world and discriminations, and you still think that there are places even in our country, let's not talk about the world, but in our country, where there's still ignorance
Oh yeah.
and discrimination and bigotry happening. Those are frustrating things to see. When you see people taking action against a person or a group of people because of who they are, and it's disappointing to see.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. Everybody, Derek Watson, 41, did a lot of work for the majors, NIS driver. Really good to talk to you, man. From Portland, Oregon, the guy did a great job tonight. We went 20 minutes over our usual schedule. So it'll be a long podcast. I'm sorry to everybody who, if you fell asleep, I apologize. All right. It is 12:30 at night, so I apologize. But I just want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank you, Derek. Appreciate you doing the interview.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
I want to thank everybody. This is a great interview. Please go through and listen to it. Don't be scared to reach out to Derek Watson. Derek, where can people reach out to you?
Most commonly, it's probably at Derek Races on, what do we call it now? X, Twitter, Twix.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I like Twix. I think that's
Twix.
probably the best.
Twix.
That's what I call
like
it.
that.
The best. That's like Twitter and X mixed together.
Uh-huh.
That's probably the best way. You'll find me in different Discords, a Majors Discord, RaceBot Discord. If you see me in there, you're welcome to say hello. Be patient with this new Discord filtering system. It stinks. There's messages that get lost in the void forever sometimes. But yeah, I do try and look and see if there's anything pending, but we do miss them. But yeah, the Twitter, X, whatever you call it, is probably the best way.
Sounds good. We'll try to get you in the Chop Shop Discord so any of those guys can reach out to you if they have any questions, if that's okay with you.
Cool, absolutely.
Yeah, so I appreciate you, man. It was a great discussion. We got to talk a little bit about God and a little bit about racing and your life. So, yeah, man, I just want to thank everybody for watching. It was a great episode. I really want to thank the guys at Chop Shop. Michael Strickland, TJ Krober did a fantastic interview last night. I cannot wait to do a secondary interview with him. Gotta thank the guys over there. Jerry Culver, Brad Dove, Michael Newbrow, great race there, did a good job. Chris Roberts, we got to get you in for a little short interview as well. Joseph Grijalva, come on, get in here, man. We got to get an interview scheduled with you. I scheduled it 3 times, and you slept all 3 times, man. Come on. Get it pulled together here. Cannot wait to get some of these new interviews that I got planned. Thank you, Robert Church, Signature Esports, Pit Stop TV, Grid Vision, AG Designs, Chop Shop, Speedy Trophies. Lots of sponsors, lots of people to shout out. So I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This was a good experience, and I can't wait to see you next time.